Welcome to Starbound. My name's the Voice Ogre, and I'll be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories, including brand new stories of Sunspire Academy, which I happen to do, and Freyrin and Rimiki. If you'd like to unlock early access and support new episodes and future series, tap Join below to become a Starbound member. Now, let's get into today's story. Finn Calloway had prepared for culture shock. What he hadn't prepared for was dinner. The common room of Unity Pod buzzed with nervous energy as his new roommates arranged themselves around the low, circular table. Zephyk, the Ventilon social coordinator, fluttered his wing cases as he distributed the evening meal. A collection of nutrient-rich globules that resembled oversized caviar. Bulkor, whose massive form took up nearly a quarter of the room, hummed a low, pleased tone through his filtering organs. The others, a translucent Silthar, two fur-covered Kythons, and a plant-like Verdanian, settled into their preferred positions with the easy familiarity of longtime friends.
"The protein spears are especially good tonight,"
Zephyk announced, his eyes catching the light as he spoke in rapid musical bursts.
"And the mineral supplements have that tang that Bulkor likes."
Finn nodded politely and picked up one of the globules. It felt firm but yielding, like a large grape filled with liquid. Around the table, his roommates were already consuming their portions. Bulkor's feeding organ extending to envelop entire clusters. The Kythons rolling spheres into their mouths. The Silthar absorbing nutrients through direct contact with his fingers. Standard procedure, Finn figured. When in Rome. He bit into the globule. The reaction was immediate and catastrophic. The Verdanian's leaves trembled violently in shock. One of the Kythons made a strangled noise and toppled backward. Zephyk's wings snapped open in alarm, and Bulkor's tonal humming cut off abruptly, replaced by what could only be described as the wail equivalent of retching.
"What?"
Zephyk gasped, his voice high-pitched with horror.
"What are you doing?"
Finn paused mid-chew, liquid dripping from his chin. Eating? The Silthar pointed one trembling glass-like finger at Finn's mouth.
"The grinding, the crushing. By the stars, he's destroying it."
"Are those?" Bulkor's voice wavered between octaves. "Are those the bone fragments in your mouth?" Finn swallowed carefully. "Teeth. They're called teeth." The room erupted. Zephyk began reciting what sounded like prayers in his native tongue. The conscious Kython scrambled backward until he hit a wall. The Verdanian's leaves wilted, and Bulkor retreated to the far corner. His bulk squeezed against the wall like he was trying to phase through it.
"Teeth,"
the Silthar repeated in a whisper.
"Grinding teeth in his mouth. For destroying food,"
Zephyk added, his voice faint with shock. Finn looked around the room at the faces, or face equivalents, of his new roommates. 8 months of xenobiology prep courses hadn't covered this particular scenario.
"Look,"
he said carefully, "I can explain." 3 days later, Finn sat alone at breakfast, again. The cafeteria buzzed with normal activity around him. Students from dozens of species sharing tables, trading notes, conducting the everyday business of university life. But a careful observer would notice the subtle buffer zone around table 74, where the human sat with his tray of carefully selected whole foods.
"Mind if I sit?"
Finn looked up to find Zephyk hovering nearby. His wing cases folded nervously against his back. The Ventilon carried a formal-looking tablet and wore what Finn had learned was his serious expression. Multifaceted eyes focused to their smallest aperture. "Sure," Finn gestured to the empty chairs. "Plenty of room?" Zephyk settled across from him and activated his tablet.
"I have been conducting research."
"About?"
"Human dental weaponry."
Zephyk's voice carried the careful tone of someone who had practiced this conversation.
"Item 1. Are the bone fragments in your mouth naturally occurring, or were they surgically implanted for combat purposes?
Finn nearly choked on his coffee. Naturally occurring.
Item 2. Do you require live prey? Or can your crushing predator apparatus process pre-killed protein sources?
I don't require live anything. And I'm not a predator. I also wouldn't go around calling humans predators either. That word has a different meaning where I'm from. Zephic's eyes widened to their maximum aperture.
But the grinding behavior, the systematic destruction of food matter, this indicates hunting methodology.
This indicates that I evolved from hunters, yeah. But I personally have never chased down an antelope.
Antelope?
It's a large herbivore. Fast runner. Humans used to hunt them by running them to exhaustion. The tablet slipped from Zephic's grip.
So it's true? You ran your prey to death?
My ancestors did. Like hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Your species pursued fleeing creatures until their cardiovascular systems failed.
Well, when you put it like that, it sounds horrible. Zephic was quiet for a long moment, his wings twitching as he processed this information. Finally,
most advanced sapient species evolved from prey animals. We developed intelligence as a survival mechanism. It's better to think your way out of danger than to fight.
Makes sense.
Humans are the first known species to evolve from persistence hunters.
Zephic picked up his tablet and made a note.
Your evolutionary pathway entirely is oriented around pursuing, exhausting, and consuming other living beings.
Finn set down his coffee cup. Zephic, I eat salads. I've never hunted anything more dangerous than a good grade in organic chemistry. And unfortunately, no amount of persistence helped with that one.
But you could.
I mean, theoretically?
The bone fragments. Teeth. They are designed for breaking down resistant organic matter.
For chewing food, yeah.
Prey tissue.
Or vegetables, or bread, or really anything that needs to be broken down for digestion. Finn leaned forward. Look, I get that this might be weird from your perspective. But humans have been civilized for thousands of years. We do not hunt our roommates. Zephic's wings rustled.
The statistical likelihood of predatory regression under stress is
0. Finn said firmly. The statistical likelihood is 0. Zilch. Come on, man. I'm not a threat. Another long pause. Then Zephic's eyes shifted to their middle aperture.
The bone fragments require maintenance?
Dental hygiene, yeah. We clean them.
You maintain your weapons.
Finn sighed. I maintain my teeth so they don't rot out of my head, yes. Zephic made another note.
Fascinating. A self-destructive biological tool system.
He looked up from his tablet.
Would you be willing to demonstrate the maintenance procedure?
You want to watch me brush my teeth?
For science.
Professor Quillan's xenobiology class met in a tiered amphitheater designed to accommodate various body types and sensory requirements. Finn had chosen a seat in the middle section, hoping to blend in with the diverse crowd of students. That plan had worked for exactly 3 weeks, until Professor Quillan learned about his unique dental situation.
Class,
the professor announced, her tentacles arranging specimens on the demonstration table.
We have a remarkable opportunity today. Mr. Calloway has agreed to provide us with a live demonstration of predatory dental structure.
200 alien eyes, eye stalks, photosensitive patches, and compound lenses focused on Finn. He gave a small wave.
Now, as we discussed in our evolution unit, most sapient species developed intelligence as an alternative to physical confrontation. This has generally resulted in dental structures optimized for rapid consumption of pre-processed nutrients.
Professor Quillan gestured toward Finn.
Humans represent our first contact with a species that evolved from persistence hunters. Mr. Calloway, would you mind opening your mouth?
Finn wondered if that was grounds to sue, and then opened his mouth. A wave of disturbing chittering swept through the amphitheater.
Note the variety of tooth types,
Professor Quillan continued, apparently immune to the horror emanating from her students.
Incisors for cutting, canines for tearing, molars for grinding. A complete processing system, similar to what some of us have in our abdomens, contained within the oral cavity.
A kython in the front row raised a furry paw.
Professor, why would evolution produce such an aggressive feeding mechanism? Excellent question, Triv. Mr. Calloway, would you care to explain persistence hunting?
Finn stood, acutely aware of the silence that had fallen over the room. Humans evolved on a planet with lots of fast prey animals, and we couldn't outrun them. We didn't have natural weapons like claws or venom, so we developed a different strategy. He walked to the front of the room, trying to ignore the way students leaned back as he passed. We ran them down, not in a quick sprint, but over hours, miles and miles, until the prey animal was too exhausted to escape.
The pursuit could last for hours?
Asked a faceted Sylphar. Sometimes a whole day. Humans are built for endurance, not speed. We can run at a steady pace longer than almost any other animal on our planet.
And the teeth were necessary for processing the captured prey?
Professor Quillan added. Well, yeah, raw meat is tough. You need good teeth to break it down. The Verdanian's leaves rustled nervously.
And modern humans still possess this capability?
The teeth, sure. The hunting, not so much. We figured out agriculture about 10,000 years ago.
But you retain the predatory dental structure.
We retain the ability to chew, yes. The room fell silent again. Finally, a voice from the back called out. Could you show us? Professor Quillan's tentacles curled with interest.
An excellent suggestion. Mr. Calloway, would you mind demonstrating the chewing process?
Finn looked around the amphitheater at 200 fascinated, terrified faces. You know what? Sure. Why not? He pulled an apple from his bag and took a bite. The sound of his teeth crunching through the fruit's flesh echoed in the absolute silence of the room. He chewed methodically, acutely aware of every movement of his jaw, every click and grind of his molars. Someone in the third row voided their guts.
Remarkable,
Professor Quillan murmured.
It certainly gives more agency than being at the whim of creating and finding appropriately processed food.
Finn swallowed and looked around the room. Any suggestions? 36 hands, tentacles, and appendages shot into the air. By the time Finn returned to Unity Pod that evening, the video had gone viral.
15 million views,
Zephyk announced, his tablet displaying a constantly updating number.
The university socials have never seen engagement like this.
Great, Finn muttered, dropping into his favorite chair. I'm famous for eating an apple. The comments are fascinating, Bulkor rumbled from his corner of the room. Species across the galaxy expressing amazement at human masticatory capability. What?
The technical term for chewing behavior,
Zephyk explained.
You're being called the grinder in most posts.
Good God. The Sylphar, Prism had learned, approached cautiously.
Finn, I have been researching human culture since our incident. I owe you an apology.
You don't owe me anything. Just be chill.
I don't have active control of my temperature. But anyway, I do need to apologize. I allowed fear to override logic. Your species may have evolved from hunters, but evolution does not dictate behavior. The Kythons evolved from pack scavengers, but Thorn and Bramble are among the gentlest beings I know. The two Kythons, curled together on their shared cushion, murmured in agreement. I would like to understand, Prism continued, about the teeth, about human culture, about what it means to be a thinking predator. Finn considered this, and then sighed. He'd been doing a lot of that lately. Do you want me to brush my teeth? Very much, yes. So that night, for the second time in a week, Finn found himself demonstrating dental hygiene to a rapt alien audience. The Unity Pod members clustered around the small bathroom, watching with scientific fascination as he applied paste to a bristled brush. The cleaning compound contains mild abrasives? Zephyr asked, taking notes. Fluoride and hydroxyapatite, mostly. Helps prevent decay. Oh, and potassium nitrate, because my teeth are fussy sometimes. And you perform this maintenance ritual daily? Ideally twice daily, sometimes more. Though, don't ask me that question when I'm depressed. Remarkable dedication to weapon upkeep, Bulkor observed. They're not weapons, Finn said around a mouthful of toothpaste foam. They're tools for eating. Multi-purpose tools, Prism corrected. I have been reading human literature. Your teeth feature prominently in expressions of emotion and social signaling, even art. Human culture is remarkably complex, Zephyr said, his wings rustling with excitement. I have been studying your educational records. You are here to study xenobiology? Yep. Figured if I'm going to be the first human at Confluence for a bit, I should start making friends. Confluence University has accepted 17 sapient species, Bulkor noted. You are unprecedented, Prism said. The first thinking predator in known space. Finn looked at himself in the mirror, at the teeth he'd never given much thought to before leaving Earth. No pressure. The library's botanical section was designed to accommodate Verdanian students. High ceilings, carefully controlled atmospheric composition, and living walls that rustled with communication networks. It was also, Finn had discovered, remarkably peaceful when most other students were at dinner. He was deep in a text on comparative evolutionary psychology when someone approached his table. Excuse me, are you the human? Finn looked up to see a Kristen. She was roughly his height, with the characteristic faceted features of her species, and she carried an armload of literature texts. I'm Finn, he said, and yes, I am the token human. Nissa Brightwater. I'm in comparative literature. She gestured to the empty chairs. Mind if I sit? I have some questions about your species' narrative structures. Sure. Finn closed his textbook. Though I should warn you, I'm probably not the best representative of human literature. More of a science guy. That's actually perfect. Nissa settled across from him. I'm researching survival narratives across cultures. Human literature seems uniquely focused on persistence and endurance themes. Makes sense, given our evolutionary background. Exactly. But what fascinates me is how your stories treat struggle. Most species literature focuses on avoidance of conflict, or a quick resolution through intelligence. Human stories seem to embrace prolonged difficulty. Finn leaned back in his chair. You mean like stories where the hero has to work hard for a long time before winning? Yes, but more than that. Your stories suggest that the struggle itself has value. That overcoming obstacles through sustained effort is somehow noble? Well, yeah, I mean, anybody can succeed if success is easy. It's how you handle the difficult stuff that shows who you really are. Could you give me an example? Well, there's this old story called The Tortoise and the Hare. A rabbit, he challenges a turtle to a race. The rabbit is the faster creature, but he gets overconfident and he takes a nap halfway through. The turtle just keeps going at his steady pace, and he comes to win. The moral being that consistency defeats talent.
Persistence beats arrogance, yeah?
Fascinating. Nissa made notes on her tablet. Kristan literature focuses heavily on harmony and balance. The idea of deliberately choosing a harder path to prove one's character is foreign to us.
What about when you face something you can't harmonize with?
We adapt. We find a way to exist alongside the difficulty rather than confronting it directly.
Finn studied her face, watching the subtle shifts in the light across her faceted features. It's not wrong, I suppose. It's just different.
Your approach isn't wrong either, she said quickly. Different, as he said. But I am beginning to recontextualize why your species developed such complex dental structures. If you're going to spend your life chewing through problems...
She trailed off, and Finn grinned. Might as well have the right tool for the job. Nissa's features caught the light as she smiled back.
Would you be willing to discuss more human literature with me? For my research?
I'd like that, Finn said. Sphere capture, Zefik explained, was the university's most popular sport. The game was played in a zero-gravity chamber, with teams of 6 attempting to retrieve and hold on to various textured spheres using only their natural appendages.
The spheres are designed to resist standard gripping mechanisms,
Zefik continued, his wings buzzing with excitement as he led Finn through Unity Pod's equipment room.
Each one has a different surface texture, density, and a behavioral characteristic.
Finn picked up one of the practice spheres. A silver orb about the size of a softball, covered in tiny, flexible spines that seemed to actively resist his grip. Behavioral characteristic?
They're semi-autonomous. Basic AI that makes them try to escape once grabbed. The challenge is maintaining hold while maneuvering in 3-dimensional space.
And every species uses their natural abilities.
Of course. Bulkor's filtering organs can create very powerful suction. The chitons have retractable claws. Sildar species can form their hands into any shape needed.
Zefik paused.
We assumed human hands would provide some advantage, given your manipulation capabilities.
The first practice session did not go well. Finn tumbled through the zero-gravity chamber, fumbling with spheres that seemed designed to slip out of everything. His teammates moved with fluid grace. Bulkor's massive form surprisingly elegant as his filtering organs snagged sphere after sphere. The Chithons using their claws to devastating effect. Prism molding his translucent fingers into perfect gripping tools. Finn, meanwhile, managed to hold on to exactly one sphere for exactly 3 seconds.
The human anatomy appears poorly suited to sphere capture,
observed Koreth Dawnfire, leader of the rival Harmony Pod, as she watched from the observation deck. Her flame-like projections flickered with what Finn was learning to recognize as amusement.
Early days yet,
Zefik called back, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced.
Perhaps Unity Pod should consider academic competitions instead,
Koreth continued.
I'm sure there are areas where raw grinding capability would be advantageous.
Finn caught the sphere he'd been chasing and immediately lost it again. Was that supposed to be an insult?
Merely an observation,
Koreth said.
Harmony Pod looks forward to an educational match.
As Harmony Pod filed out of the observation deck, Finn noticed one of them lingering, a Kristan female whose faceted features seemed to watch him intently. She caught his eye and nodded slightly before following her teammates. Who's that? Finn asked as his team regrouped near the chamber's exit.
Nissa Brightwater,
Zefik replied.
Literature student. Why?
Just curious. But as they headed back to the locker room, Finn found himself thinking about persistence, endurance, and the value of a long, steady effort toward a difficult goal. The atmospheric processor rooms were located in the deepest levels of Confluence University, where the air recycling systems hummed quietly. Most students avoided the area. Too industrial, too utilitarian for social gatherings, which made them perfect for clandestine meetings.
I've been reading more human literature,
Nissa said, settling beside Finn on a maintenance catwalk suspended above the processing units. Her features seemed to capture the reflected light of the machinery below. Find anything interesting? Your species has an unusual relationship with impossible odds. Finn looked up from the poetry collection she'd shared with him. Kristan verses about adaptation and flow, written in patterns that seemed to shift meaning as he read them. How so? Most literature treats impossible situations as tragedies to be avoided or adapted around. Human stories. She paused thoughtfully. You write about them like they're opportunities. Well, impossible things aren't really impossible usually. It's just really, really difficult. That's exactly what I mean, Nissa continued. There's a human story about a ship that hits an iceberg. The ship sinks, but the story focuses on how people behaved during the disaster. Acts of courage, sacrifice, love in the face of certain doom. The Titanic? Yes. A Kristan version of that story would focus on the engineering failures that led to the collision, or the design improvements needed to prevent future disasters. The tragedy would be a problem to solve, not a stage for character revelation. Finn considered this. Both approaches have merit. Do they? Your approach seems to invite suffering. Or it acknowledges that suffering is inevitable, so might as well make it meaningful. Nissa was quiet for a moment. Is that why you came here? To Confluence University? Partly. Someone has to be the first human in interstellar education. It might as well be me. Even though it's difficult, being the only one of your kind. Especially because it's difficult. Finn grinned. Though, I have to admit, the teeth thing caught me off guard. Nissa's faceted features caught the light in a brilliant flash, the same way he'd noticed in the library. I find your teeth fascinating. Yeah? Not the predatory aspect. Well, not only that. The maintenance ritual you described. The daily care and attention. It suggests a long-term perspective, planning for a future where those tools will still be needed. Never thought about brushing my teeth as philosophical. Everything about your species is philosophical. The way you approach problems, the way you treat your own biology, the way you... She paused. The way you make others feel. The machinery hummed around them, and Finn became acutely aware of how close they were sitting. Nissa? Yes? Are you supposed to be meeting me like this? The light across her features flickered and shifted rapidly. No, she said finally. Harmony pod members aren't supposed to fraternize with competing pods. And yet, here we are. Yes, here we are. They sat in silence, watching the atmospheric processors cycle through their endless maintenance routines. Finally, Nissa spoke again. There's going to be pressure as the season progresses. My podmates will expect complete loyalty. I understand. Do you? Because Korith has been developing strategies specifically to counter whatever advantages you might bring to Unity Pod. She's been studying human biology, looking for weaknesses. What kind of weaknesses? I don't know. She's been very secretive about her research. Nissa's expression grew worried, the light on her features seeming to dim. I wanted to warn you. Why? Because... Her features seemed to shine, catching the light more brightly than ever. Because I think I'm starting to understand what your literature means about impossible odds. Unity Pod's second official match was against the Spiral Collective, a mid-tier pod known for steady, methodical play. It should have been a close contest. Instead, it was a massacre. Finn tumbled through the zero-gravity chamber, grasping desperately at spheres that seemed to actively mock his efforts. His teammates compensated as best they could. Bulkor's suction organs working overtime. Zephyk darting between opponents with manic energy. But the numbers didn't lie. Final score, Spiral Collective, 52. Unity Pod, 12.
The human element appears to be less advantageous than anticipated,
Koreth observed from the viewing deck, her flame projections flickering with satisfaction.
We're still developing our strategies,
Zephyk replied, though his wings drooped with disappointment.
Of course. I'm sure Unity Pod will find the right approach eventually.
As the teams filed out of the chamber, Finn caught sight of Nissa among the Harmony Pod observers. She wouldn't meet his eyes.
Rough match,
Bulkor rumbled as they headed to the locker room.
I'm holding you back,
Finn said.
Nonsense. Early season adjustments are normal.
Bulkor, I couldn't hold on to a sphere for more than 5 seconds. My hands aren't designed for this game.
Your hands aren't,
Prism agreed. But perhaps we've been thinking about this wrong.
How so?
The Silthar's crystalline features shifted thoughtfully.
We've been trying to use you like any other player,
but you are not any other player. You're a human.
Thanks for the reminder.
He floated in the center of the chamber, holding a practice sphere in his hands. The sphere writhed against his grip, its programming making it squirm and twist in patterns designed to defeat standard manipulation techniques. Finn opened his mouth and bit down. The sphere's surface was tougher than he'd expected. Some kind of synthetic material designed to withstand significant pressure. But his molars found purchase, grinding against the textured surface, and suddenly the sphere's struggling movements changed character entirely. Instead of trying to slip free, it was trying to avoid damage. Interesting. Finn spun in the zero-gravity field to find Zephyk floating near the chamber entrance, his eyes focused to their sharpest setting. How long have you been there?
Long enough to observe your experimental technique.
Zephyk moved closer, his wings adjusting his trajectory with practiced ease.
The spheres are designed to resist gripping, suction, and standard manipulation methods.
But not chewing.
But not chewing. Yes. The designers never considered the possibility of a species that would...
Zephyk paused.
That would attempt to consume the game pieces.
Finn released the sphere, which immediately tried to dart away, but its surface showed clear indentations where his teeth had gripped it. I'm not trying to consume anything. It's just applying pressure in a way the AI wasn't programmed to handle.
Show me again.
For the next hour, they experimented with different techniques. Finn discovered that different teeth provided different advantages. His incisors could puncture the sphere's surface for a precision grip. His canines could hold it secure while he maneuvered, and his molars could apply enough pressure to override the sphere's escape programming entirely.
This could work,
Zephyk said finally, his voice bright with excitement.
This could actually work!
There's gotta be rules against it.
I reviewed the regulations extensively. Players may use any natural appendages or organs in sphere capture, provided they don't cause permanent damage to the equipment.
And teeth don't cause permanent damage? Zephyk examined the sphere that Finn had been practicing with. The surface showed clear indentation marks, but the synthetic material had sprung back to its original shape.
Superficial compression only. The spheres are designed to handle significant stress.
So this is legal?
Completely legal, and completely unprecedented.
They floated in the chamber's artificial gravity field, surrounded by the scattered spheres of their impromptu practice session. Finally, Zephyk spoke again.
We should inform the others.
You sure? Once we start using this technique in matches, everyone will know about it. Other pods will develop countermeasures.
Let them try,
Zephyk said, his wings rustling with determination.
Human persistence versus alien adaptation should make for an interesting season.
The news spread through Unity Pod like wildfire. Within hours, the entire team had assembled in the practice chamber to witness Finn's techniques in action.
Remarkable,
Bulkor rumbled as Finn demonstrated the grip technique.
the spheres appear to be completely unable to escape when secured.
The applications are enormous, Prism added, his translucent form shifting with excitement. If Finn can maintain possession indefinitely, we can build entire strategies around his holding capability.
But is it ethical?
Asked Thorn, one of the Kythons.
Using a biological advantage that no other species possesses.
Every species uses their natural advantages,
Zephyk replied.
Bulkor's suction organs, your retractable claws, Prism's morphic capabilities. This is no different.
It feels different.
Bramble, the other Kython, chittered nervously.
More predatory.
Finn released the sphere he'd been holding and let it drift away. If you're not comfortable with this, we don't have to do it.
The question isn't comfort,
Bulkor said in his deep, resonant tones.
The question is whether we're playing sphere capture or creating an entirely new game.
What do you mean?
Traditional sphere capture relies on agility, strategy, and adaptive techniques. If one player could simply consume the spheres and render them inert, it changes the fundamental nature of competition.
I'm not consuming them, Finn protested. I'm just gripping them with my teeth instead of my hands. The effect is the same, Prism observed. Once you've secured a sphere, the opposing team has no realistic chance of recovering it.
There is another consideration,
Zephyk said finally.
If we use this technique and win, how will the victory be perceived? Will Unitipod be seen as champions? Or as the team that exploited a loophole?
Does it matter? Finn asked.
It might. To us, if not others.
Finn looked around at his teammates. Beings from half a dozen worlds who had welcomed him despite his alien nature. Despite the fear his very biology inspired in other species. They'd become more than just roommates or classmates. They'd become friends. Let's vote, he said. Everyone who wants to use the technique, and everyone who doesn't. Majority decides.
And what if the vote is close?
Bulkor asked. Then we don't use it. This only works if we're all committed. Some were unsure, but the vote was unanimous in the end. 5 in favor.
Then it is decided,
Zephyk announced.
We adapt our strategies to incorporate human dental techniques.
The news of Unity Pod's secret weapon leaked exactly 3 days before their match against Harmony Pod. Finn was leaving his xenobiology class when he found himself surrounded by reporters from the university's media network. A dozen students from various species, all shoving recording devices towards his face.
Mr. Calloway, is it true that Unitipod has developed a new technique based on human predatory behavior?
Can you confirm reports that you've been using your teeth as gripping tools?
How do you respond to claims that this represents an unfair biological advantage?
Finn pushed through the crowd, trying to reach the relative safety of the library. No comment.
Is Unity Pod planning to deploy human dental techniques in the championship series?
I said no comment.
Mr. Calloway, is it true that Unitipod has developed a new technique based on human predatory behavior?
Can you confirm reports that you've been using your teeth as gripping tools?
How do you respond to claims that this represents an unfair biological advantage? Finn pushed through the crowd, trying to reach the relative safety of the library. No comment!
Is Unitipod planning to deploy human dental techniques in the championship series?
I said no comment.
Mr. Calloway, how do you respond to Harmony Pod's assertion that your technique violates the spirit of fair competition?
That stopped him. What? A translucent reporter extended his recording device closer to his face.
Korth Dawnfire issued a statement this morning, claiming that Unity Pod's new technique reduces sphere capture to a contest of raw biological advantage, rather than skill and strategy.
She said that.
Her exact words were, If we wanted to watch feeding behavior, we would visit a zoo rather than an athletic competition. Any response to that characterization, Mr. Calloway?
Finn looked around at the eager faces, at the recording devices capturing his every expression. Somewhere in that crowd, he was sure, was a student who would make sure Nissa saw whatever he said next.
Unity Pod plays within the rules,
he said finally. If Harmony Pod has concerns about specific techniques, they can file a formal complaint with the athletic department.
But do you personally believe?
That's all I have to say. He pushed through the crowd and didn't stop walking until he reached the atmospheric processor rooms. 3 levels down and safely away from the media circus above. She was waiting for him.
Finn.
The light on Nissa's features flickered erratically, her distress obvious to even his untrained eye.
You saw the news coverage?
I saw Korth's statement.
They stood on opposite ends of the catwalk, the space between them feeling like a vast gulf.
Did you know?
Finn asked.
About what she was planning to say?
I knew she was concerned about your technique. I didn't know that she was planning to characterize it that way.
As feeding behavior.
Finn.
As something you'd see in a zoo.
Nissa's expression tightened, the light across her features steadying.
She's trying to get inside of your head to make you doubt yourself.
Is that what this is?
Yes. No, I don't know.
The light across her features shifted again.
She's been researching human psychology, looking for pressure points. She knows about us.
About us?
She suspects, anyway. She's been asking questions about my research and why I spend so much time in the literature section.
Nissa moved closer.
Finn, she's going to try to use our relationship against both of us.
How?
I don't know yet. But she's planning something for the match tomorrow. Something specific to counter your techniques.
Finn looked down at the machinery humming below them. The endless cycle of atmospheric processing that kept the university's diverse population breathing. Maybe she's right.
About what?
About the teeth. About it being unfair. He looked up at Nissa, at the worried light flickering across her features.
Maybe I am turning sphere capture into something it was never supposed to be.
Or maybe you're showing everyone that there's more than one way to play the game. Even if it means winning through biological advantage rather than skill.
Is persistence not a skill? Is endurance not valuable? Is the willingness to try something unprecedented not worth celebrating?
Those are very human perspectives.
Yes.
Nissa said, moving to stand directly in front of him.
They are. And maybe that's exactly what your team needs.
The match between Unity Pod and Harmony Pod was held in the university's main athletic complex, with seating for over 3,000 spectators. Every seat was filled. Finn floated in Unity Pod's preparation area, listening to the crowd noise filter through the chamber walls. Somewhere out there, reporters from across the galaxy were waiting to see whether human dental techniques would revolutionize sphere capture or be exposed as an elaborate gimmick.
The spheres have been modified,
Zephyr announced, his wings twitching with nervous energy. Modified how?
Surface coating. Something that creates an unpleasant taste when bitten.
Zephyr consulted his tablet.
Perfectly legal under competition rules, and completely harmless to human physiology.
But it'll make using my teeth extremely unpleasant.
That appears to be the goal, yes.
Finn picked up one of the modified spheres from the equipment rack. It looked identical to the standard versions, but when brought close to his face, he caught a whiff of something that reminded him of rotten eggs mixed with bitter medicine.
Clever, Bulkor rumbled. They can prevent you from using your natural abilities, but they can make the experience sufficiently unpleasant to deter the technique.
The match began with Harmony Pod executing a flawless formation. their 6 players moving in perfect coordination to secure 3 spheres in the opening minutes. Koreth Dawnfire commanded the center of the playing field, her flame projections flickering with controlled aggression as she directed her team's movements. "Unity Pod appears to be avoiding their much-publicized human techniques," the commenter observed. "Perhaps the surface modifications have proven more effective than anticipated." Finn tumbled through the zero-gravity field, pursuing a sphere that danced just out of reach. Around him, his teammates executed the plays they'd practiced for weeks, each one adapting their natural abilities to the game's demands. They were magnificent, and they were losing. Harmony Pod led 23-18 at the half.
"We need to make a change," Zephyk said during the break. "They're executing flawlessly, and we're keeping pace."
"Keeping pace isn't enough," Prism agreed. "We need something to disrupt their rhythm." All eyes turned to Finn. He looked at the modified spheres in the equipment rack, their surfaces gleaming with chemical deterrent. "The coding won't kill me," he said finally. "Just make the experience really unpleasant."
You don't have to do this, Volkor rumbled. We can find another way.
Can we? Because right now, Harmony Pod is playing a perfect game. They've neutralized our strategies, countered our advantages, and they're winning through pure technical excellence.
So,
that's exactly the kind of impossible situations that humans are supposed to be good at. The third quarter began with Unity Pod implementing their modified strategy. Instead of avoiding the dental technique entirely, Finn used it selectively, grabbing spheres with his teeth only when absolutely necessary, enduring the horrible taste long enough to secure possession before passing to teammates who could maintain control without the chemical deterrent. The approach worked, barely. Unity Pod managed to close the gap to 31-29, but the effort was taking its toll. Finn's face was pale with nausea, and his teammates were pushing themselves to their physical limits to compensate for his reduced effectiveness. "This is becoming a war of attrition," the commenter noted. "Both teams are showing signs of fatigue." In the stands, Finn caught a glimpse of familiar features. Nissa was sitting with the Harmony Pod supporters, but the light on her features was shifting in a way he was learning to recognize as conflicted and concerned. The fourth quarter opened with Harmony Pod ahead 38-34. 6 minutes left in regulation.
"We need a miracle,"
Thorn chittered, exhaustion clear in his voice.
no,
Finn said, spitting the taste of chemical deterrent out. "We're not losing." He launched himself toward the center of the playing field, where 3 spheres hung in a contested cluster. Harmony Pod had superior position, their players arrayed in a defensive arrangement that would have made retrieval nearly impossible. Finn bit down on the nearest sphere, ignoring the wave of nausea that followed, and held on. The Harmony Pod players swarmed him, trying to force him to release his grip. But Finn had grown up hearing stories about marathon runners who completed races on broken bones, about explorers who walked hundreds of miles through hostile terrain, about ordinary people who did extraordinary things simply by refusing to give up. He held on. "Remarkable display of determination," the commentator said as Finn maintained possession despite being surrounded by 6 opponents. "The human player appears to be absorbing significant punishment, but refuses to release the sphere." 30 seconds, a minute, 90 seconds. Finally, Koreth called a timeout.
"This is exactly what I warned against,"
she said during the break, loud enough for the broadcast equipment to pick up.
"Reducing athletic competition to a contest of biological stubbornness."
all competition involves biological elements,
The referee replied.
Unity Pod is playing within established rules.
"The rules never anticipated a species that would—"
Koreth paused, seeming to realize that her next words would be broadcast across the galaxy.
"Never mind."
Play resumed with 4 minutes left. Unity Pod trailed 42 to 39. But something had changed. Finn's display of pure, stubborn persistence had shifted the momentum of the match. His teammates began playing with a similar refusal to quit. Bulkor remained suction holes that should have been broken. Zephyk pursued spheres through maneuvers that defied his species' normal risk tolerance. Prism adapted his crystalline structures in ways that pushed the boundaries of physiological capabilities. With 2 minutes left, the score was tied at 45. With 30 seconds left, Unity Pod led 47 to 46. With 10 seconds left, Harmony Pod had possession and a clear shot at the winning sphere. Nissa took the shot and missed. The victory celebration was subdued, at least by Unity Pod standards. They had won, but the margin had been so narrow, the contest so brutal, that exhaustion outweighed elation.
That was not sphere capture as traditionally played,
Kareth said during the post-match interviews, but her tone was different now, not entirely dismissive.
It was something else entirely.
And what would you call it? A reporter asked.
A demonstration of will,
She said after a long pause.
Not pretty, not elegant, but effective.
Finn was fielding his own share of media attention, most of it focused on his technique and its implications for future competition.
Do you think your approach will change how sphere capture is played?
A Verdanian reporter asked. I think, Finn said carefully, that my approach worked for this match with this team in this situation. Whether it works for others, that is up to them to figure out.
But surely, the biological advantage...
There's no biological advantage to holding on to something that tastes like rotting garbage. It's just stubbornness.
And stubbornness is a human trait.
Stubbornness is a sapient trait. Humans just happen to be particularly stubborn about certain things.
Such as?
Finn looked out over the emptying athletic complex, where maintenance crews were already beginning to reset the zero-gravity chamber for the next event. Such as not giving up when everyone expects us to. She found him on the observation dock, an hour after the crowds had dispersed and the media circus had moved on to other stories. Congratulations, Nissa said, settling beside him on the bench overlooking the playing field. Thanks. Sorry about the loss. Are you? Finn looked at her, at the complex way the light shifted across her features. What do you mean? I mean, are you sorry we lost? Or are you sorry that I was on the losing team? I'm sorry that one of us had to lose. That's very diplomatic. I'm learning. They sat in comfortable silence, watching maintenance crews restore the chamber to its default configuration. Finally, Nissa spoke again. I missed on purpose. What? The final shot. I had a clear angle, perfect trajectory. I missed on purpose. Finn stared at her. Why? Because. The light across her features flickered rapidly. Because I realized that I wanted you to win more than I wanted my pod to win. And that scared me. Scared you how? Kriston philosophy emphasizes harmony and balance, the greater good over individual desire, and what I felt during that match, wanting your success more than my own team's. It goes against everything that my species believes about proper behavior. And now? Now, I'm thinking that maybe individual desire and the greater good don't have to be in conflict. Maybe sometimes the most harmonious choice is to follow your heart, even when it's difficult. It's a very human perspective. Yes, she said, her features seeming to glow. It is. The observation deck was empty except for the two of them. The complex quiet except for the distant hum of atmospheric processors and life support systems. Somewhere in the dormitories, Unity Pod was probably celebrating their victory. Somewhere else, Harmony Pod was dealing with their defeat. But here, in this moment, there were just two individuals from different worlds, learning that the space between species might be smaller than anyone had imagined. "The media's gonna have questions," Nissa asked. "About why I missed? About us?" "Are you ready for that?" "I think so. Are you?" Finn looked out over the empty playing field, where two pods had just finished proving that competition and cooperation weren't mutually exclusive. That biological differences could be advantages rather than barriers. And that sometimes the best way to win was to redefine what victory meant. "Yeah," he said. "I think I am." Nissa's features glowed brightly, and she leaned over to kiss him. The kiss tasted like victory and possibility and the kind of future that neither species had imagined when they first started sharing the same galaxy. When they finally broke apart, Finn realized that the observation deck wasn't quite as empty as he'd thought. A maintenance worker was watching from the far end of the chamber, his photosensitive patches blinking with what might have been approval. By tomorrow, the image would be on every social network in the university. By next week, it would be interstellar news. But tonight, it was just two people who had learned that the best victories weren't the ones that you won by being stronger or faster or more technically skilled than your opponents. They were the ones where you won by being brave enough to try something new. 1 year later, Finn stood in front of a mixed-species audience in the university's largest lecture hall, explaining the finer points of human dental hygiene for the umpteenth time to an audience of fascinated xenobiology students. "So the key thing to understand," he said, demonstrating proper brushing technique on an enlarged model, "is that maintenance is about more than just cleaning. It's about taking care of the tools that help you interact with the world." A Kython in the front row raised her paw.
But the daily ritual aspect, is that cultural or biological?
"Both. Humans have a tendency to turn physical activities into cultural rituals. We make meaning out of maintenance."
And the grinding behavior during feeding?
"Chewing?" Finn corrected gently. "We call it chewing. And yes, it is still an essential part of human digestion." From the back of the hall, a familiar voice called out, "What about the social signaling aspects of dental display?" Finn grinned, his teeth catching the light in exactly the way that terrified his first alien roommates. The gesture no longer caused panic. After months of exposure, most species had learned to interpret the human smile as a positive social indicator rather than a threat display. "That is an excellent question, Professor Brightwater." The light across Nissa's features flickered with amusement. After her very public declaration of affection in the Sphere Capture Championship field, she had faced considerable pressure from traditional elements within Kriston society. Her response had been to write a paper on cross-species relationship dynamics that had revolutionized comparative anthropology and earned her a graduate position in the university's Xenocultural Studies program. "Human smiles serve multiple functions," Finn continued. "Social bonding, threat assessment, emotional communication, and sometimes just the pleasure of showing off a well-maintained set of teeth." The class laughed, a sound that 6 months ago would have included several species equivalent of nervous chittering, but now carried genuine warmth. "Any other questions?" Our Vardanian's leaves rustled.
Is it true that human couples sometimes share brushing rituals?
"Well, Finn said, glancing toward the back of the room where Nissa sat with a small group of graduate students. "That's getting into advanced xenocultural territory. You'll have to take Professor Brightwater's seminar for those kinds of details." The class ended with the usual collection of students approaching the demonstration table, eager to examine the dental tools and ask follow-up questions. Finn had learned to pack extra toothbrushes for these sessions. Several species had developed their own oral hygiene routines inspired by human practices, even though their dental structures were completely different. Popular as always, Nissa said, approaching the table as the last students filed out. The teeth thing never gets old, apparently. It's not just the teeth. She picked up one of the demonstration toothbrushes, examining its bristled surface. It's what the teeth represent.
Very profound, Professor.
I have my moments. The light on her features took on a playful shimmer. Speaking of which, I have news. Good news or bad news? Depends on your perspective. The university has received applications for 12 new species for next year's exchange program. Apparently, the word has gotten out that Confluence University is a good place for unusual students. Finn looked around the empty lecture hall, thinking about his first dinner with UnityPod, about the horror in his roommate's eyes when he'd started chewing, about the long journey from fear to understanding to friendship. That is good news. Even if it means you won't be the only unique student anymore?
Especially if it means that.
Nissa's features shone brightly, and she moved to stand closer to him. Ready to be a pioneer in an interspecies education policy? As ready as I'll ever be. Good. Because there's a delegation of Thraxian students arriving next month, and they have some very interesting feeding behaviors that make human chewing look positively mundane.
How interesting.
They pre-digest their food externally using secreted enzymes, then absorb the resulting liquid through specialized mouth organs. Finn considered this. So basically, they spit on their food and then drink it. That's actually a fairly accurate summary, yes.
So they're flies. Cool. And they come in here to study?
Yes, apparently they're fascinated by species that form emotional attachments to their food preparation methods. Finn laughed, the sound echoing through the empty lecture hall. A year ago, he had been the strange one, the biological oddity. The student whose very existence challenged everyone's assumptions about what was normal. Now, he was going to be the welcoming committee.
I should probably stock up on extra cleaning supplies,
he said. Probably. Though I hear the Thraxian digestive secretions are actually quite hygienic. Natural antimicrobial properties.
Of course they are.
Nissa's features shone with a pure, bright light, and she reached over to take his hand. Her surface was warm and slightly textured, completely alien and completely familiar. Ready to head home? She asked.
Yeah,
Finn said, squeezing Nissa's hand. I'm ready.